Now, a 48 Storm Team special presentation. Tracking the Storm. Sponsored by Yellowhammer Roofing.
Good evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis. We are entering our secondary severe weather season. It's a time of transition when the heat of summer has come to an end and the harsh cold of winter is right around the corner. During this time of year, a south wind can blow unstable air straight from the Gulf of Mexico right into the Tennessee Valley, while at the same time a strong cold front can develop across the Central Plains and move in from the west. As the cold air collides with the warm, unstable air, violent thunderstorms can erupt and race at speeds over 50 miles per hour, producing large hail, damaging straight-line winds, and in some cases, long-track tornadoes. Tornadoes like the one that went on a rampage down Airport Road with destructive winds over 200 miles per hour, killing 21 people, many of whom were stuck in traffic on their way home from work back in 1989. Meteorologist Lauren Jones is here to explain how do we go from these isolated pop-up afternoon storms to these violent outbreaks of severe weather.
Well, Brad, in the summer months, we lack all the upper level dynamics to support the violent thunderstorms that we can see in the spring and fall. Typically, with summertime pop-up storms, we just worry about lightning, flash flooding, and microburst type winds. As the transition from summer to winter takes place in late fall, winds along the jet stream can increase in strength. The jet stream acts to support strong upward development of thunderstorms and also creates wind shear, a necessary ingredient for severe thunderstorm development. Wind shear is a change in wind speed and/or direction with height above the ground. When winds change direction with height, they can cause thunderstorms to rotate and produce tornadoes. In the fall, the jet stream starts to become stronger as temperature differences across the United States become greater. This happens when the cold air from Canada starts to spread southward into the northern tier of the states and clashes with the warm, relatively humid air still in place across the southern tier. The result is the development of severe thunderstorm and tornado outbreaks.
You know, we talk about this term wind shear in the environment to support tornadoes, and that typically occurs along the southern branch of the jet stream where you have, systems kind of rolling across the southern third of the United States.
With such strong shear along the jet stream, instability that usually peaks during the afternoon hours becomes less of a factor in severe thunderstorm development. That is one of the reasons why severe and tornadic weather can continue into the overnight and early morning hours. Another way to think about the jet stream's role is during the summer months when we have very warm, humid, unstable air in place.
Typically, the potential for tornadoes decreases across the Tennessee Valley in the summer months. It shifts to the north because the jet stream which carries storm systems shifts north.
One thing we often see in the fall is more linear systems. That usually indicates the damaging wind gusts are the primary threats. However, tornadoes, as we well know, can still form along the line. The rotation is often weaker and more short-lived than in supercells.
The rotational couplets aren't very deep, so the problem the issues that we face, the challenges that we face is that we get a radar image every 5 minutes, and sometimes within that 5-minute period, a tornado could touch down and lift, and we won't even see it.
One of the main benefits of having live storm tracker Doppler radar is that we get radar updates every 60 seconds. The proximity of storms to the radar also plays an important role, as you can get a better idea of what is happening closer to the surface the closer it gets to the radar.
If a storm, even a line, is like 60 miles away, we might be overshooting where these real low-level, shallow rotational couplets exist.
An outbreak of severe weather doesn't just develop in a matter of hours. The conditions and ingredients that produce a large outbreak begin showing up on forecast models days in advance. As a storm system gets better organized and confidence in severe weather increases, the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma will outlook areas for organized severe weather. You might also notice us talking more about the threat on our 7-day forecast or when we talk about the next weather maker. We continue to monitor the threat and update you on the expected timing and the impact we expect. It's important to remember that not all early indications of severe weather lead to an outbreak. The day of the event, everything depends on the storm environment. On that day, if conditions become favorable for tornadoes, a tornado watch will be issued by the National Weather Service. A watch is usually issued for a large portion of a region and usually well in advance of impending severe weather. If storms develop and begin to show signs of strong rotation and/or a tornado is spotted, a tornado warning is issued for the areas in danger. A tornado warning can be issued without a watch in effect, though.
Now, speaking of the benefits from a live Doppler radar, let's take a step back in time when our first Doppler radar was destroyed during the historic April 27th tornado outbreak. So we have a large wedge tornado on our Alpha camera moving directly towards the camera. Look at the bottom of the screen. We've got power flashes going on within this storm. This is a massive tornado. We knew it would be very close to the radar, and then just a few seconds later, we saw the sweep line dancing on the radar image, and we knew what had happened. We knew that that radar dish had just been picked up in the twisting wind of the tornado, and we knew for a fact we had just lost our live radar. But what I didn't know, on that very same day in Huntsville, our new live Doppler radar was being tested at Barron Services. Here's an image from this radar as our old radar was being destroyed. You can see the large donut-shaped hole in the radar imagery. This represents the middle of that EF4 tornado. It also shows you in great detail how advanced this radar is. Once I saw this image, I knew we had the right radar to track these dangerous storms in the Tennessee Valley. The first big test of our new 1,000,000-watt radar was just last month when an EF3 tornado touched down in Limestone County and tracked northeast into Madison County with winds at 140 miles an hour. Live Storm Tracker Doppler clearly showed the danger, and meteorologist Jeff Castle was able to get on the air before the warning was issued and alert our viewers in harm's way. This radar has 1,000,000 watts of storm tracking power and an amazing digital processor to help detect tornadoes and damaging straight-line winds. When storms develop, having this live, instantaneous information to pass along to our viewers provides critical information when you need it the most. Now, that was a step back in time. Coming up on Tracking the Storm, do you know what to do when a tornado warning is issued for your area? What if you're on the road or out in a public place? We all know NOAA weather radios are the best way to receive imminent weather information, so you need to make sure yours is programmed properly. Next week, we'll kick off our fall weather radio programming week. Coming up on Tracking the Storm, we'll talk more about that. Well, due to advancement in technology, there are many ways to receive weather information that do include severe weather and tornado warnings. And as WFF 48 meteorologist David Ernst shows us, yes, there's an app for that.
It seems there's an app for everything these days, and the WAFF weather app is one you should really have on your phone or tablet. It can alert you when severe weather threatens with push notifications for watches and warnings. And if you're out and about, you can set it to your location and use our interactive radar to track storms anywhere. You can also watch the latest forecast and read blog posts from the entire 48 storm team. To download it, simply search for WAFF weather in your app store. And the best news of all, it's totally free. On social media, it also provides a way for you to stay in touch with the WAFF 48 storm team. Brad, Lauren, and I are all active on Twitter and Facebook. When the weather becomes an emergency, the most reliable forms of information will come through the NOAA weather radio. Now, on screen are the best frequencies for the counties that we serve. You can also count on the most up-to-date information from our television broadcast and through our radio partners. Have these tools ready now so that on days when tornadoes and severe weather are possible and warnings are issued, you can take immediate action. We always tell people to leave their mobile homes during a tornado warning, and this is because it only takes a wind gust to 80 miles per hour to flip a mobile home. And once that mobile home becomes airborne, it can travel a great distance. A lot of mobile homes will end up in a row of trees with the home unrecognizable and the frame wrapped around those trees. Now, many of our homes are survivable in a hallway or a small closet. Think low, think small. The idea is to get as many walls between you and the tornado as possible, all while getting as close to the ground as you possibly can. The tornadoes that touched down on April 27, 2011 had winds over 200 miles per hour. The safest place to ride out a storm with that much power is in a basement or a storm shelter. Above ground shelters and in-ground shelters have many options these days, and that shelter should be built to FEMA standards. Now, you may recall a story that we did last spring about a woman that died in her safe room on April 27th in Arkansas. The final report disclosed the door on that shelter was not built to code. The door failed, and she lost her life because of flying debris.
Well, now that you know the best way to get information, you may remember last year when I showed you the best places to seek shelter in your home. You may remember the house I walked through after the April 27th tornadoes back in 2011. A massive oak tree had fallen on the house, and the framing of the house did its job and supported the load of the tree. The safest places in that house were a small hallway closet and a bathroom in the center of the home. To begin thinking about your safest place during severe weather in your house, well, you have to look beyond the walls, beyond the drywall that's hung on those walls, and to the framing of the house itself. This particular house being built, you see what we have here is a closet. And notice how well built the studs are here on this. These small rooms support a lot of weight on top of them, and that's why we talk about getting into an interior closet. You definitely want to get away from the windows. Now we're going to go to a house that's fully furnished and already built and talk about the safest place in that home. Well, last week I met up with Jeremy Walls. He lives in East Limestone County, and he showed me where his family seeks shelter during the storm. He says when they have severe weather, when the tornado sirens sound, they go to this closet here. Jeremy, why do you and your family go to this closet?
The rooms on the back side of the house, a lot of the storms, they come from the southwest. So we don't want to go in those rooms because they're on the outside edge. Same way with rooms here. And on this end of the house, this is the smallest, most compact part of the house, the center of the house.
Under normal circumstances, this closet's great because it's got the load-bearing structure. The small part of the room makes it protect a lot of weight. And this one, the best thing about this one is like a tree falling on the house. It's gonna hold that load. But my biggest concern is, say, a 2x4 or other debris coming right through this window, and it's going to go right into this door, which it's not a metal door, so it's not really going to hold anything back. So I'm thinking the safest place is actually going to be that rear bathroom. So as the debris from the tornado or even just high winds starts to come towards the house, goes through that window, it has to go through 2 additional walls before reaching that bathroom. And what that does is decreases the wind speed of the projectiles as they're moving in this direction. Not every storm or tornado that tracks across the Tennessee Valley is going to be fully capable of ripping your home from its foundation. Some are going to be weaker, which I call the hallway type storms, but others are going to be stronger, and those are the ones that you need to be seeking shelter for. The importance is knowing where the safest place in your house is. Now, most of the tornadoes we have in the Tennessee Valley are totally survivable if you heed the warning and go to your safe place. Only 1% of all tornadoes every year in the United States are rated EF5. Those tornadoes pack winds over 200 miles per hour. In those, the only safe place with these devastating storms is a storm shelter. Mobile homes are vulnerable to all types of tornadoes and extreme high wind events. If you live in a mobile home, you need to leave your home and seek shelter elsewhere. With such active weather nearly year-round here in the Tennessee Valley, it comes no surprise that we are home to one of the nation's top research centers in severe weather. When we return, we'll show you the new facility right in our backyard that's taking that research to new heights. Also, do you remember the term polar vortex? And how about that crippling 2-inch snowfall last year in Atlanta and Birmingham? Could that happen here? Well, we're going to talk more about that coming up on Tracking the Storm. For years, North Alabama has been home to one of the top severe weather research facilities in the country. UAH's new Severe Weather Institute and Radar and Lightning Laboratories, or SWIRL, will build on that excellent and collaborative severe weather and radar expertise already in place on campus.
Researchers at UAH have been at the forefront of tornado and severe weather research for years, and SWIRL is expected to raise their already formidable national standing. SWIRL is home to the instruments needed to collect data to better predict pop-up thunderstorms in the summer, when and where severe thunderstorms will occur, and the research on why tornadoes form as they do and what controls their intensity. SWIRL takes thunderstorm research to literally new heights. They can measure lightning anywhere from the ground all the way to space. They have instruments in and around Huntsville. They have done research with detection on airplanes, and they have a lightning imaging sensor in space right now orbiting the Earth.
We can watch how the lightning is evolving and gives us a clue on how the storm is also evolving. And that's the other thing that's really nice about UH. We're not only looking at lightning instrumentation and detection and lightning physics, but also lightning meteorology and how we form the complete spectrum of how lightning behaves in the atmosphere and why it matters to society.
It will also serve as a weather balloon launch facility. This is especially important in forecasting your weather, as we can get a good idea of how the atmosphere is at different heights and if the ingredients are present for severe weather and tornadoes that day.
And we can go wherever the storms are, so that means we can launch right near the storm, so we get the near storm environment that the storm is forming in and how it's modifying that environment.
The unique building allows students and faculty to simultaneously conduct these research operations, educate in a hands-on environment, and conduct outreach to attract more top-notch students.
My goal is very general. It's to work as hard as I can, to do as much as I can to bring in the research dollars to do the research we want to do.
Be on the lookout for Swirl's research to help shape weather forecasting in the future.
Now, one of the main ingredients for severe weather in the fall is the change in air masses. Sometimes behind these bigger storm systems, we'll have severe weather and tornadoes one day, and it'll be followed by snow flurries. When we return to tracking the storm, we'll take a look at last year's crippling 2-inch southern snowstorm, and we'll talk about if that could happen here. Well, you may remember last January, just a dusting of snow was in the forecast to our south. But 2 to 3 inches fell, and that led to chaos in the Atlanta and the Birmingham metro areas.
Well, you know, we've been talking all day about schools being caught off guard by this winter weather event here in the Birmingham area. Here's a perfect example of this. This is actually a Hoover school bus that was trying to get up the hill and simply couldn't make it. The school bus driver started up here, and then all of a sudden we saw it stop and just simply pull over to the side of the road. There are kids on this bus right now, and they did not want to take a chance on the bus sliding backwards, those kids getting injured. I will tell you that this is actually in the Russet Woods neighborhood in Hoover right now. A lot of the parents are being notified. A lot of them live close by and are actually walking down here to get their kids. Those parents that are maybe stuck at work are letting other parents know to come down here, get their kids, take them back to their house. The bus driver is releasing them once they make a positive identification that they are going home with the appropriate person and that the kid does actually know who that person is that is picking them up. The bus driver, the school teacher that's on this bus should be commended for doing exactly what they had to do once they got into this situation. They simply pulled over to the side of the road, let all the kids stay on the bus. They've got the heater running on there right now, and they are of course doing what they can at this point to make sure that they are comfortable. A lot of us that live around this area have come out here to make sure that the kids are okay, and trust me, they are being well taken care of right now in what has turned into a bad situation, but they are handling it.
Now, that was John Huddleston with our sister station in Birmingham. So the question is, how did just a few inches of snow manage to cripple 2 major metro areas? How could it happen here? That's the bigger question, right? Meteorologist David Ernst has those answers.
Because we don't throw the S word around very often in the South, it can cause some sense of panic when we do. Now, we can usually handle small amounts of snow, and it's typically gone in a day or two. There were several factors at play during the January 28th snow event that caused larger cities, such as Birmingham or Atlanta, to essentially shut down for what would be considered a small amount of snow.
Of course, we're in the South, so we don't see the snow as often as our neighbors, even Tennessee and northward, see, so we don't have as much in the way of equipment, but we do try to keep enough on hand to get out there and do as much as we can when the snow does occur. We have a practice here of a day or two before the winter weather's forecast to be here, pre-positioning barricades on the side of 565 and Memorial Parkway overpasses so the police department can quickly get out there and shut those roads off so we don't have the massive parking lots on the highways that some of the other locations had that aren't as used to seeing the snow as we are.
You may remember hearing the term polar vortex and the biting cold that it brought, but also brought extremely dry air. There was quite a bit of uncertainty regarding just how far north any moisture would spread to create precipitation, but once it was realized that precipitation would indeed fall, the focus shifted to the surface temperatures. Just a few days prior, readings were in the 60s, so like in most events, it would take a few hours of snow falling to drop surface temperatures below freezing, allowing anything to stick. Now, the headaches quickly began when those surface temperatures rapidly dropped, allowing the first layer of snow to melt and immediately refreeze as a thin layer of ice underneath additional snowfall that was adding up quickly. So while it's not out of the question to happen here, several rare factors would have to perfectly line up.
Well, we came very close to that, at least for an hour or so last January, when heavy sleet began falling in the city of Madison, right when schools and businesses were letting out. They were letting out early, and traffic was brought to a standstill for just about an hour and a half or so. Fortunately, temperatures warmed up, and traffic delays, well, they were temporary. When the word snow and, of course, severe weather outbreak are mentioned, well, social media lights up. This can be a great tool for information, but beware of fake posts that are published to attract likes and attention. Irresponsible, misleading, and old posts that get shared or retweeted are some of our biggest problems we encounter when trying to forecast extreme weather events. Sometimes the long-range forecast models come up with some pretty bad scenarios. You'll need to be aware of posts that jump on developing systems too. I call it the overhyped event, like this one. They make false claims days or weeks in advance. This image here, posted last December, was by a storm chaser that lives in Oklahoma. It's a perfect example. He was calling for an outbreak of tornadoes in the Tennessee Valley 6 days out. This created panic with many viewers on social media and other viewers as well. Storm reports from the Storm Prediction Center on that day in question only show isolated damaging winds occurred here in North Alabama. Now, the key to pinpointing a major severe weather outbreak days in advance comes from an experienced meteorologist and consistent runs of the forecast data. Sometimes the more hype they can make the forecast through social media, the more shares and likes they get with it. Take a look at this one. You think this post caused a panic in New Orleans? I'll tell you what, when the National Hurricane Center has to make a post about a bogus forecast, well, you know it's been making the rounds on social media. Now, no storm ever formed in the Gulf of Mexico with this threat. And last but not least, posts that deal completely in satire. How about this one? The Empire News posted this over the summer. You bet it got a lot of attention. Most people didn't realize it wasn't an actual forecast, but they shared it anyway. Think twice before you share that image or that status update, and be prepared for those. There's going to be a blizzard in 10-day posts that should start showing up on your news feed coming up probably in the month of November, if not earlier. By the way, did you share this image last spring? Photoshop is great, but a tornado can't pick up a rainbow. Don't get me wrong, social media is a great tool to share weather information, but on days when breaking severe weather, it's not reliable. Posts that get lost in the shuffle. Sometimes our old critical information gets retweeted and creates misinformation. Also keep in mind, Facebook changes the way they deliver the information to your newsfeed from time to time. You might not get timely warning if you're waiting for it to show up in your newsfeed.
That's some great information, Brad.
Thank you all for joining us this evening.
We'll see you next time. We're tracking the storm.